So first of all, I want to thank, well, what can I say? I said at the beginning, and I think that you can only agree with me now, that it was a stunning collection of speakers that we had. And we have to all thank them for what they've given us. And the session chairs behind the scenes helped us find and persuade these people to actually attend. But please join me in thanking both the session chairs and the speakers. I also want to thank the AV guys. They've had a difficult job. There's technicalities and difficulties, but the good news is that the videos, as I've seen, the screens are clear, and we're going to work on making them available very soon. And they've done a really good job in capturing all this information and being there helping us. So please, let's thank them as well. And finally, I really have to thank, well, the Broad Institute for hosting this meeting. I think you'd agree it's turned out to be a fabulous venue for this meeting. And of course, Bang Wong, particularly as the local organizer. Thank you very much. So last year, we had 130 people in the room. This year, we went somewhat beyond that number. Actually, people kept coming in until the last minute. So I was told about this in Boston, Cambridge area. People will enroll at the last minute. There's so many things going on. They sort of like to keep their options open. And we had people sort of rolling in at the last minute. I haven't even looked at the registrations for the tutorials yet for tomorrow, but they've probably gone up as well. And we had the Brodies sneaking in. They were loud. But we kept track of them, so we actually had quite a number of people in the room. So I think that's a testament to how this meeting has evolved, that there's clearly, we have hit an unmet need, and we're not tired of this meeting yet. And so on that note, I'd like to sort of formally announce the plans for the following year's meeting. So as I mentioned at the beginning, the basic plan to keep my life and our life simple is to sort of alternate between two places, not to try to have a different venue every time, at least not for the next number of years. So it's back at the EMBL in Heidelberg, Germany. I just sent everyone out an email blast with a Poll Daddy poll that Jim kindly set up. Please, we would encourage you to fill that in. And I know it's a kind of a bit of a waste of time, so just as a little teaser, an iPad Nano goes to the person, by complete lottery, the person who we choose, just by complete chance. So you have a chance of winning an iPad Nano if you fill in the feedback, just to make it a bit more fun. But that's really going to help us. Particularly, we'd like to know your ideas about. It's wonderful to hear that. I'm sure many of you say the meeting has been a success. That's what everyone's told me. Maybe that's what they always tell the organisers. Of course, tell us what your ideas are for how we can evolve it in the future, and this is something we'd like to discuss in a few minutes going forward. I realise I haven't completely organised my slides as I would like to. Poster prize, we did announce it. Last time I checked, I haven't looked at this right now, but there did seem to be a winner emerging. So I don't know if he necessarily has to come up, but sorry, I'll just do a quick refresh here, but I think that the results were unambiguous that we had. Okay, so last minute changes of voting, but poster D10, Jörg Bernhard has won the poster prize for Visby 2011. Congratulations, Jörg. Oh, yeah, I think you don't have to come up because I don't actually have anything physical to give you. What we give you is the promise of a free subscription to Nature Methods for 1 year, and we'll feature this on the blog, so your work will get some increased recognition. Let's see, we might be able to do something further in terms of a mention. We've had, I don't know if people have noticed, but there have been a number of journals here, Genome Web, Nature Methods had an editor here. I think about 4 or 5 different journals and publication-related organizations were here, and there'll be some reports coming out, and so there'll be some recognition given to the poster from Visby. So On the poster note, you may have remembered several emails from us promising a beautiful Silverlight wall. We actually spent a lot of effort and built a beautiful Silverlight wall that automatically updated and has wonderful navigation and everything like that. And it took a long time, was delayed. We finally got it ready, and then something terrible happened. Users started using it, you guys. Uploaded images with, I don't know what they had with them, but some of them were just maybe different color spaces or something. Somehow it completely crashed the wall, and we can't show anything about it. All of the effort has just been, if you like, in vain for the meeting. But I think when Jim and myself have a day free time, we can just go through and work out which image is causing, or images are causing the problem, and fix it. So promissory note that there will be a Silverlight version of all the posters. Just means faster navigation, kind of impressive, but nothing to show right now. But you may have noticed that the posters, as I mentioned a little bit earlier on, are all available on the VisBee website. So one of the things we'd like to do is to encourage and to promote the participation of not just the speakers, but the people who bring posters, make their work visible. This is a goal we have in VisBee. So on that note, some of the session chairs, I haven't yet told them their work is not quite finished. I would like them to seek out their speakers and convince them, beg them, plead them to get their presentations, which we'll host up on the VisBee website. So you may or may not know that we did this last year as well. So on the program side, if you go to 2010, you can actually download most presentations, PowerPoint, PDFs, or Keynote files. They'll also be here. Those speakers that give us permission to distribute them, and we'll feature the videos there. So when will the videos come? I don't know. Actually, having seen the production, it did seem to be working. It's really being directly fed in and directly mixed. So it's likely that they may happen within a week or so. There's a possibility of that. But, what's that saying in marketing? They will come real soon now, whatever that means. I think Des had some of these sort of approximate ideas of when things are going to happen. So the videos were coming. Now, you also probably have seen that on the video we have a blog and we have a mailing list. Just want to explain a little bit. What we want to do with the website is create a resource for us, as in the community of people who come to VisBee, the tool makers, and those that use visualization intensively for the research, but also for a broader community. Ultimately, this is coming to the book, for just the normal community of biologists who want some guidelines and some indications of us to create these recommendations of enumerating and listing all the possible visualization tools that are available in the different areas and making some kind of recommendations. But what we want to do with the blog, and particularly, is to announce meetings of this kind, related meetings or activities, events of this kind. If you know of meetings, just send it to us, contact@visbee.org. We're happy to post anything there that basically meets the criteria, biology plus visualization. The mailing list, personally, I don't like getting spam mail, so I like to use it very sparingly, like 3 or 4 mails a year maximum, just announcing new meetings, the official call for participation, and so forth. So you have your 2 options for staying in contact with VisBee there. And I'd like to issue an invitation to anyone. So we're currently a relatively small group of organizers behind VisBee. People who would like to get involved, particularly where we need help, is on the website very much, but in any ways, involvement and help is appreciated. I don't know what I can offer in terms of making the invitation more attractive to you. The ability to participate in something that's obviously going to be an exciting and ongoing thing, but what we need people help with design, for example. There may be some people in the room who know something about design, and implementation, PHP, MySQL, JavaScript. Please come forward. Silverlight, most welcome to come forward. And I really think that now with the second meeting, we've got this very strong response going forward. Looks like we've secured the funding for next year's meeting. I think the website is going to become can become, and really should become, an increasingly important resource for us to keep in contact with each other, to hosting these videos, doing it nicely, doing it in a way that enables people to easily find the videos that they need. This is all work. Up until now, a lot of it's been on very few shoulders. And we do need help for this, and we have some funding. Okay, from this year we got sort of quite a relatively good number of registrations. We're going to be left with some excess cash, but really I think what we're going to need is ultimately a full-time position, or half of a full-time position, really just a web programmer. And if anyone has got ideas for how we can get that kind of funding, be it US or Europe, please let me know. I'm very interested. As I mentioned, the book initiative at the beginning, several people come up to me. I'd encourage people to continue to get in contact. I think almost all of the chapters are now coming into focus. We have a clear first author for almost every chapter, but there's still possibility to be involved if you want. So FISBE 2012, as I mentioned, is Heidelberg. Heidelberg is a wonderful place, as you see. It really is. It's the second, I think the second or the third best tourist attraction in Germany. Beautiful castle, beautiful old city, and just sort of to counterpoint that, the EMBL has this advanced training center, quite a modern and almost extravagant building from the inside. It is really, those who were at FISBE last year can tell you it was a very nice venue for this meeting. So most welcome to come. So we have actually also the program is coming into shape. Almost everyone, all spots are filling up. But on that note, what we're doing next year is, again, preserving overall the same structure, but we don't want to stay still. Larry said this very well, and I'm going to invite him up probably now, coming up. So I want to introduce Larry Hunter, who is one of the organizers of this year's FISBE. Larry came along last year just as a normal participant. I'm always surprised at FISBE that we get, I always tell people that our speakers are often, the normal speakers at FISBE are often keynote speakers in some courses, in some events, and sometimes the normal participants are themselves normally very high-profile people. This is certainly the case of Larry, who actually founded or co-founded the ISMB, the largest meeting in bioinformatics, the PSB, Pacific Symposium Bioinformatics, Rocky Mountain, what is it called? Rocky? Yeah, Rocky, and those are the ones that I know of. I actually think there's several more. He tends to sort of be a bit of a groundbreaker in being involved in new movements in this strange intersection between biology and computation. And so when he stupidly, or foolishly rather, volunteered to help with the organization, I jumped on the opportunity. He's helped a lot, and I want him now to, because we have had various conversations, there's been various drinks involved, but we've come up, he wanted to articulate a few ideas about how the meeting can evolve and to provoke a discussion here, because we do need help and input. The basic forum is good, but we do perhaps need to evolve this going forward. So please, Larry.
Thank you, Sean. I guess all these artistic approaches to things require some creative tension. And Sean has been the creative guy and got to thank everybody, and I think my job is to provide the tension. So what I want to do is say a couple of things about where we might go, and then pass microphones around and encourage participation. The idea here, one of the ways I think we want to evolve is to create more interaction. I think we were happy as we were with the meeting, and I want to preface everything I say, which is going to sound a little critical, with how wonderful it was and how everybody told me. But I think there are a few things we are short on, and one of them is interaction. So there haven't been a lot of questions, there hasn't been a lot of dialogue. I think part of the rationale for this very cross-cutting meeting that starts with genomes and goes to physiology and communities and the like is to try and get some cross-fertilization going. Surely we have some problems in common and some solutions in common and some places we could collaborate. And I've heard wonderful interactions among people, but they're personal. And fortunately, the Broad's lobby is small, so I overheard some really interesting conversations. But it would be nice if we did it in public together in a way that was a little more shared. So I'd like to hear some ideas about how we could increase the level of interaction and cross-fertilization and dialogue. And a second thing I think that we should try and figure out ways to improve the meeting about is sort of the actionability. Right? The goal, one of the reasons I loved Sean's vision of this was we wanted to have an effect on the world. We wanted to make people's tools prettier and more effective and to create better visualizations and better tools and deeper, quicker biological insights and better educational materials and to communicate better. That's the goal of doing this. And so we want not you to just walk away saying, wow, what a cool meeting. I can't believe that animation, but actually take something back with you to improve your biology or your outreach or your tool building or the like, and to try and be actionable. And so one of the ideas that was perhaps inspired by too much drinking, but was that we could have some discussants. We could actually have critics on a panel. So at the end of a session, say, probably not after every paper, but we could have some of the people who have design ideas or principles or the like sort of play American Idol judge. right? And say, well, you know, that was okay, but here's a better way to use the 3D. Or it could be the other way around. Wow, that was a really clever way of using that continuous color line in ways that violated what I said was a principle, but that one worked. And maybe we could talk a little bit about why it worked. And to have some kind of interaction that way, but also a little more interactivity and a little more actionable take-home messages for each of the people who put the work into giving a talk. And I know there's the possibility that would sound, who would give a talk when you got, you know, 3 great experts in visualization sitting listening to your talk, taking notes about what you did wrong. But I think all of you are really brave. And a lot of you self-recognize, you know, said, well, you know, if I had listened to the talks before I wrote these slides, I might have done it a little differently. So we're already down that path. And I really don't think it would be a bad thing. I think it would be a good thing. So I want to encourage that, or at least think about ways we might do that. And I think Herv's suggestion that just in the last talk about maybe having a panel or an interaction set of events. I think the first one, there was a panel at the end where all the session chairs sat and said, okay, what's the summary? And I don't think that worked all that well as a way of generating interactions. So maybe we can intersperse them a little more or come up with you know, people whose job it is to think of those and then report on them to us, things like that. So now, with all that said, I'd like to open the floor to hear what you think of either those ideas or of other ways we could improve the meeting, of ways that we can evolve. Because we really, even successful organisms need to keep going, all right? We can't stay still. We have basically 5 years worth of money, at least, for running this meeting. And if we're doing the same thing 5 years from now, we will have failed. So we need to evolve, and we need to think together about the form, about the content, about the people. Who are we missing? What communities aren't here? Who should be here? What have we had enough of? What do we want more of? And so I'd really like to hear your thoughts on the matter.
We had a very early question over here.
As a new person to the conference, I'd suggest that sometimes maybe people may not want to interact since they're new to the community. So there's just the social interaction that may be inhibiting. But maybe during registration, if there's a pre-survey where we could ask our dumb questions, and if the chairs could then collect those to then start that discussion, and then maybe people will feel more confident to join in.
I like that, and I've been really impressed at the use of Twitter. I've never been in a meeting where I thought Twitter was of any value until today. So maybe we can use some of these electronic means as a way of getting questions kind of flowing and make it easier to get over that energy barrier of having to walk down to the microphone and you know, actually have people know who you are.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Steve. Yeah, so I think one thing is that because it's such a diverse crowd, I mean, I didn't even know at any given moment what the crowd was, like when Drew Barry was giving his excellent keynote address. There, you know, that there was a large crowd of people who may not even be scientists and might just be, you know, be part of the public. So just in terms of the diversity of backgrounds that are kind of being addressed, I think that in some cases, it's kind of intimidating to ask questions after a talk when most of the detail, there's been a lot of depth, beautiful, really interesting depth, but it's maybe beyond the scope of much of the audience, and therefore it might be hard to ask questions or raise things about. So just getting maybe a panel of what everyone's background is. I don't know what the best way to do that is, but
I think on that point, I mean, the common theme is visualization. We do have that in common.
Right,
That's
right.
what we can all. We should all feel free to challenge someone who does red-green on heat maps, or who does, if you think it's inappropriate. It might be appropriate in that situation, but that's what's common. It's true. I mean, one of the inhibiting factors, I think, was the fact that there were such good speakers who were in their own field so prominent, but then most of us were outside of that field and felt perhaps a little reluctant to ask questions.
Well, and maybe the questions could be a little different than the usual scientific meeting questions. So this isn't a usual scientific meeting, right? So people are not presenting their latest results of what I got, or giving you the 20-year history of my field. Well, maybe except Des. But so the questions are going to be different questions. They're not, I have a problem with your method, and let's talk about whether the controls were right. They're different sort. And they could be comments. It's like, well, gee, did that tree, the stuff you talked about trees, could we use that and somehow, flip our heat maps around so that they also obeyed that tree ordering? I'm just making stuff up. But they could be more of that kind of exploratory, let's think about this together sort of question, rather than the, I want to challenge whether that was right or tell you stop using red, green. I'm sorry, there was one, yes.
I think perhaps you would facilitate some of this kind of discussion rather than by putting somebody up to give a talk and then having them mobbed by the MST3K crowd at the front. By having formalized debates between people on opposite sides, moderated debates. And I think that would, A, it would present the different things much more clearly to the audience, and B, the people who would be participating would be a little bit less broadsided by the comments coming at their stuff. I mean, if they're coming up and prepared to have an argument about this, and a collegial, gentle argument with an opposing viewpoint, they're going to have thought through how to present these things much better than if they're not really prepared for the debate that's going to be presented to them.
Like that? Go ahead.
I think that usually, maybe you will agree with me, I hope. So almost all talks will ended up with a comment that we have maybe time for one question. So if we always run to this during the talk, it's hard to expect any discussion. So if we don't put a time for discussions, then there will be no discussion. And if there's one question, then is my question good enough to be only one? So maybe we have to organize something, because those 90 seconds were perfect. Yeah, it kind of put us on the right time frame. So maybe we have to do something similar, so we will have some time to discuss.
That's a good point, and it would be easy to fix. So that's low-lying fruit. Thanks.
Sorry, we get Nils' little thing. Tamara, you want to?
Sure. So just to be slightly curmudgeon-y, maybe we don't have to evolve quite so much before dying. I think there's a lot about the current structure that's working extremely well, and I encourage you not to kill. So for example, one thing you did that's very different from conferences I've been to, which was a spectacular success, was you split the posters into hunks. And instead of having the room with 50 posters and then there's no hope, you split them into the lunch and the dinner, and you gave us enough time to talk. You gave us 2-hour lunches. That was very, very good and successful. So I would actually argue that one of the reasons I came was to meet a bunch of people I didn't know and have time to chat with them. So those one-on-ones that you said, oh, couldn't they be more public? Maybe they don't have to be. Maybe one of the points of success is that people actually get to meet each other and talk to each other, because I'm not quite so into the idea of the discussant as opponent, because I think it actually would kill something about the free exchange of ideas and the fluidity, because people are coming from very, very different fields. So I think there's some things you are doing really well that I encourage you to keep on with.
Thanks. I didn't mean the American Idol thing is probably a bad metaphor. But you got to remember, there are friendly judges on American Idol, okay? People do win. I do think, knowing who the discussants would be, people like you, I'm sure that it would be gentle and constructive and interesting. Okay, the point is not to say what you did wrong. The point is to look for opportunities to improve, and there's a difference between those. Or maybe to identify synergies or commonalities across things. That they don't have to be critical necessarily. They need to discuss. But I want to take what you said in another way and encourage. Oh, you took it away. Where's the poll? To go to the to actually do the poll thing. I can't find it. Doesn't matter. There it is. So fill out the poll stuff and take these things that you like, and let's hear about it. I think the 2-hour lunches were a great idea too. They're half an hour longer than they were last year. So give us those good ideas. Tell us what you want to keep and other ideas for things that we could extend.
And one more quick thing. There's often a tension between the needs of the workshop organizers and the workshop attenders. And I think that often workshop organizers have this idea that there must be actionable things that come out to show that the workshop was good, but that actually imposes quite a burden on the poor attenders who are like, oh, but no, I went to the workshop, it sparked great ideas, maybe a few new collaborations, and then I go back and I industriously do my own work, and I don't necessarily do things actionable for you. So keep in mind that you don't want to have the burden on attendees being too great, because that actually then will make people maybe a little less likely to get involved. So I know there's a tension, but keep in mind that actionability also has cost.
By the way, splitting the sessions into so many small poster sessions was completely forced on us by the small space of the Broad, not something we wanted, but now we've seen it works, which is wonderful. Evolution, that's right. Evolution in action.
Right, with stochastic exchange mutation, right?
Yeah.
All right.
So one thing I noticed, which I really thought was great, was that people started interacting more the longer the sessions went on. So today there was a lot of conversation that you didn't necessarily see a couple days ago. So one of the things that I'd like to see, and I don't have a specific plan for this, is a way to kind of mix people up a little bit, have them introduce each other the first half a day or something. And I think maybe everybody, you know, sort of giving us 90 seconds would be too much, but maybe there's a way to break people up into small groups, maybe do some initial getting to know each other. People, you know, because there's a lot of very interesting people here, but you don't necessarily just bump into them until you've seen their poster or something.
I mean, the whole idea of ISBE is to create a community that didn't exist before. That's the point. And I tell you what many people probably don't realize is that a significant number of people who came to ISBE 2010, I guess many of them were Europeans, are here again. I was really quite shocked, and the number of Australians that came, I'm still blown away by. But so to some extent, you know, it solves itself slightly incrementally by the build-up of community and knowing familiar faces next year. But I completely agree. Some way of sort of socializing at the beginning. I mean, the poster fast forward is the perfect way to present yourself, but we discussed this. You can't have 180 people presenting themselves the whole day. It would just be too much.
Right.
We have to space that out. But yeah, I think we should probably begin with quite early on with some kind of social event that somehow forces people to mix. That's an idea I have in mind. Don't know how to do it either, but we'll try.
Yeah, I'm not going to necessarily say this is a great idea, but maybe breaking people up into teams and running some kind of visualization trivia test or something, some kind of contest where people have to work together as teams, or somebody who's a group psychologist who has a better idea can take that, but I think it would help.
I'm certainly not a psychologist, but one thing we're going to do next year is simply put the tutorials in the day before, which is tried and tested from many other meetings, and that is going to give some people a greater sense of community before starting. That might just do it, yeah.
Actually, I have a quick comment on that. If afterwards, when we hear some of the presenters speak, if we could even just raise our hands and say, who has related work? Or who has,
I like that.
How does that address a concept? How does this concept address something you might do? And that would help just so we know what faces to look for later.
Maybe have a sort of a discussion after each session, because the people in the session usually have a lot in common. And perhaps a group of people could sort of meet together in some place, a sort of split-off thing, and start discussing their genome or genome-specific stuff that the rest of us aren't interested in together in some closed room where we don't have to hear.
But I want to build connections across. You know, those by excluding those genome folks that you don't want to hear about, then we've failed to do something we're trying to do with the meeting. I think where you have to listen.
Where are the ecologists and the biogeographers?
Next year they're coming.
Yes, I can see that next year there's a small section at the end, but I see it. I mean, I understand that this is a history of the organisation, but I think there's a great need for integration with the ecological sciences, and the ecologists would, I think, learn a lot by coming here.
Yeah. We're trying to cover the visualization of all areas of biology, which is, of course, impossible in 3 days or any given length of time. And that's definitely one thing to say, what we were missing. So thank you very much. We'll put it in, we'll add it in. Tell us if we don't do it right. Keep telling us when we miss people.
So regarding the organization, I think it was great, and I very much agree with the comments that were made previously. 2 suggestions. One of them is maybe to give the option to not preset all the talks. So have this 90 seconds, which was great, but also to leave out slots. So works that come out of posters that are really of general interest, then you can turn them into, say, 15 minutes talk or something like that. So short talks, and then to be sort of more highlighted or something like that.
Yeah. We could perhaps have a voting on the posters, and the best poster could give a talk. I mean, I almost wanted to do that in the time.
So that's one thing. The other thing is all the divisions as they're done now, they're based on science. So with visualization, you have different crowds, different audiences involved. So there are people who come from the engineering perspective, and they're doing the rendering and all that stuff. So there's the tutorials that are dedicated for the last day currently, but it might be beneficial to have some sort of talks with people from, you know, different levels of getting the visualization to work. So then you'd get this interaction from different people from different backgrounds, in a sense, to be included, not just divide them according to their scientific field. And the third, it's not a comment, it's more of a suggestion, a very broad suggestion.
I think a lot of the people here are saying, was one of the comments was made like 2 minutes ago was, well, if you can stand up and say who has related work and stuff like that. I think there's an obvious need for that, and that's probably because of the way we're accustomed to do our science, which is kind of for historical reasons. So what we do is we write papers and then we have conferences. But probably that needs to be adopted. So my suggestion would be, if I was looking for people who are working here and doing some stuff. So if we're interested in software for, I don't know, phylogenetic trees or something like that, what I would like to do is I would like to go to my app store, right, in a sense, and that would be a scientific app store or whatever. And it's curated, it's organized, but instead of thinking in the way that, you know, okay, I need to publish this as a paper and stuff like that, so it's organized, maybe it's reviewed, and then you can see pros and cons, you can see the comparisons of the different possibilities for you to use. So I don't have to come here and stand up and say who has a related work and stuff like that. And then VISB can be the conference where it actually directed in a longer view of what are the emerging fields, what are the big problems, and so, yeah.
Great. Thank you.
One comment about one of the things you said in the middle about the scientific nature of the organization of the talks. It's kind of intentional. So this is Sean's insight, and I think it's really held up over a couple of years, is that we take the tool builders or the people who are more of the computer scientists and the visualization gurus, and they're the keynotes, and then it's the sort of power users, the people who are really getting new science out of using visualization, who teach us about each one of these kind of specific topics. So it's interleaved in a way that is intentional, and in part because there was a desire to make an identity for this conference that was separate from the IEEE visualization stuff, which overlaps some. SciViz, InfoViz, the sort of VisWeek things are ostensibly about similar topics, but you can clearly tell the difference between the two meetings. And I think in part it's because of this choice of the organization. I think there's some value in keeping that core, you know, design choice.
Hey, a proper delegate list would be good as well. Whether, you know, online or just in the printed material. And if it was online, then you don't need to worry about how much to print. You could have like a small blurb from everyone telling everyone what they do. And then you'd be able to find out before even getting here.
Yeah, I've had requests from about 5 or 6 people by now, so I take the point. I don't know quite how to implement it. I don't want my email address on the website.
It doesn't need to be an email address, just, you know, describing what you do even.
And would you actually have 184 participants? Would you actually go through and read them? I don't know if I would, to be honest. I mean,
but a lot of conferences do have at least a delegate list. So.
Yeah. A suggestion has been made that I think we can do this. I forward an email to everyone asking if you want to be included in a delegate list that we then email to everyone. So I think people need the option to opt out, right?
Okay. Well, and perhaps we can do, because we have heard this a lot, and I like the idea of a little bio about who you are and maybe a URL or a picture or something like that. So when you register for next year, after we get the web programmer, you could upload a picture and a paragraph if you wanted, and we'd make them available.
Sure.
And that way it would be an opt-in. And
no, I completely agree, and that's what I was saying about the website becoming a community resource. The only thing is, as the guy doing most of the web programming, I can't do that. I need help there. I just need help. So, are you volunteering?
Volunteers, yeah. I think you're up.
I'll just echo I think the great success of the poster sessions, the huge amount of time. Maybe it did come about by accident, but it was, you know, the place was buzzing. And it strikes me that the program for next year is looking rather full. I would encourage you to be brave and create empty holes in it. And that's when the discussions will take place. So that there haven't been many questions, that's true. It's partly the arrangement. It's a traditional lecture theatre, doesn't make it easy. Also, after an hour and a half of talking, we're all sort of gagging for a drink, and that's a deterrent. If I got one other little suggestion, panels have been mentioned. The usual way of doing them, of course, is you get some renowned experts on the panel. Another way of doing it, which I've seen is very effective, is you get a small number of, you choose some young researchers who you know are good, and they give their vision, and that turns the tables, and then everybody, including the renowned experts in the audience, are able to sort of provide thoughts about that.
Yeah, I fully take the point that the most important part of the meeting happens outside of the meeting, right? The non-scripted, non-structured interaction. And we did try to allow a lot of space. What perhaps didn't work perfectly in every case is that and we tried to keep people 25 minutes plus 5-minute talk, and I think there was space, but unfortunately there was several cases where things ran overboard and we lost a couple of coffee breaks. So we'll put even more space into the schedule, because I think we all agreed on that.
3 comments. I repeat the idea that the posters were a great idea. I loved the 90 seconds. Wasn't so crazy about the trumpet at the end, but it kept things moving. You could see who was whom, and there was a small number of posters each time. Secondly, I would consider reversing the zoom. Zoom in instead of zooming out. Yep. We reverse the author list. The alphabetical part of the middle of our author list goes Z to A sometimes. One of my colleagues is named Zweig, so she's always at last, so we put her first. And then I forget what the third one was. Thanks.
You know, that's interesting. It's an easy way to not be stale, but not have to change too much. So starting with populations and ending with genomes.
In fact, last year, I mean, this wasn't particularly planned, but we did actually have the reverse order. The only thing now is that what will be stale is if we always in Europe go from large to small.
I do remember the third thing. The conversations in the hallway were among the best parts of the meeting for me. And there were a lot of conversations that I kind of overheard and got involved in that were very interesting. And I understand the UK has more cameras per capita than any place in the world. Perhaps we could find some Brits who could wire our conference hall, and then we could have another room where we could go and eavesdrop on other people's conversations.
I was wondering if not some kind of visualization contest would make sense in this meeting, because we have on the one hand many people having data, not knowing what to do with it, and on the other many people having lots and lots of tools. And it would be fun to give out the data on Wednesday and then see what the people with the tools can do until Friday, and then show.
Actually, that's something, not quite a contest, but that's actually the plan for tomorrow afternoon. People are bringing their own data. Not everyone's going to work on the same data, but and that may evolve next year into something more along the lines of what you're saying.
You're a little bit sort of restricted to the tools that will be in the tutorials, right? But there's so many tools here, so many tools that people were presenting, and it would be fun to try them out also, and to see.
Actually, so the tutorial session is structured a little more richly. So the mornings are learn about the tool that you signed up for. The afternoon, the bring your own data session is intended for people to certainly get to try the things they learned in the morning on their own data, but also to try some comparisons, to do a little, well, I want to try a little in this and a little in that. We have a little bit of an evaluation plan, so there's kind of a structured form where you say, how did it work, and what did you try, and things like that that we're going to try and use. And it would be wonderful if people used tools that weren't necessarily taught in the morning sessions, but were appropriate, or they wanted to compare. That would be a great thing.
Okay.
An elaboration on actually that idea. So it could be interesting to put out a data set before the conference and kind of give people, maybe just 2 or 3 that kind of cover different areas, and give people a chance, if they had the time, to just produce something, and maybe you could, showcase that somewhere, because then you get a feel right away for people's different styles and the different tools, and that could promote a lot of discussion and interest. Versus if you get something on Wednesday, the conference is really busy. I don't know how much time anyone would have to really apply themselves to something like that. And the next suggestion was just to go further on that idea of putting up bios beforehand. I think that would be a great idea, and I have a suggestion that would be a certain amount of work, but in order to account for the fact that there's so many people, maybe in addition to a little bio, people could select from a predetermined set of keywords. Yeah. And kind of like the organization, same thing like when you go to Delicious, that you could pick a few keywords. Yeah. That way, sure, there's 184. If you want, you could read all of it, but if you have certain particular people you want to talk to, you could
I think we can easily extend it. It's sort of the poster. Basically, you submit, you register, your bio goes up, and you either do or don't add a poster to that. It's just you have a page, basically, with your submission, and you can tag it. We had, in this case, categories. You couldn't have multiple, but which I know in some cases doesn't work, but I think should be able to add tags. I'm interested in genome, I'm interested in metagenomics.
Yeah, or even your field, like, you know, I work in, you know, for a magazine, like you're saying, so you know people that you want to talk to, or in education, or et cetera.
Exactly.
Two quick points. I'm glad to see medical genomics and that sort of thing next year because of trying to tie genetic variation to phenotype. That'll be pretty neat to see in what's coming out of that section. Could this meeting be moved to like 5 weeks later in 2 years? So when it's back in Cambridge. And the reason for that is the Cambridge Science Festival is going on, and that has many events that are funded by Pfizer, Amgen, and a lot of the big companies around here. It might be a way to tie in to get funding to show some of the cool stuff that the 150 in this room got to see to a much broader audience, bring in the education side of things, the public outreach to a city, to a region, really. People come from many cities to go to the science festival here.
I think it might, my initial reaction is it would be a good idea to tail end our meeting into that, to take some of the keynote speakers, for example, or invite some of them over for a keynote talk. But one thing that we sort of agreed on earlier is that since we're really about community building, this group hasn't really met before. This is just the second time. And when we come back here, it'll just be the second time in Cambridge. So being part of a larger meeting really does distract from this idea of creating a cohesive...
It's a public event. The science festival is a public...
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, so I've been interposing my will in the fact that people are looking like they're starting to fall asleep. So does anybody have anything else to say? Sorry, I should probably be introduced, or if you haven't worked out. I promised to... I've been Sean's partner in crime with all of this. And I was going to say anything that hadn't been said, but I think that everybody said quite a lot about the meeting. And I'd personally like to thank Bang, who has been amazing. And he's standing up there, kind of partly with his head in his hands, but partly also, I think, with a grin on his face. And Sean, who has really been amazing. The fact that he hasn't slept for about 2 weeks before this meeting doesn't actually show, I think. And of course, Larry, to provide the spice, I think, in this case, to challenge people. And all of you guys. So, I don't know, over to you. Any last words or last words, Bang?
Yeah.
No? So,
there's some last words.
Go for it then.
Yeah. So, we have some good news that came out of last year's meeting. So, when we first sent off the proposals, we had to look at the landscape of similar meetings. There wasn't anything with exactly this description. There were these visualization meetings, not in biology. There was several with a focus on biomedicine, but not really many areas of biology missing. So since that time, a number of things have happened. So in the ISMB 2011 coming up in July, there's going to be a workshop run by some of us with sort of on principles. It's not a... So we're sort of in now the mainstream bioinformatics meeting. There's a Gordon conference coming up that Art Olson, I believe, is involved in. I don't know exactly how one gets into those meetings, but I'm sure you know better than me. And now I'd like to invite Niels, who was one of the organizers last year, and this year was not officially an organizer, but actually ended up being an organizer, in fact, because one of the things that happened was the IEEE came to us after the success of VisBee last year, and they actually asked us to co-locate with their VisWeek meeting. And my initial reaction was no way, because this is by definition a biology meeting. We're working in the field of biology, and we, of course, working in a disciplinary area, but the meeting really has a focus on biology. That's a very deliberate choice. And the IEEE and VisWeek have very different audiences and so forth. Not to say that they're bad people, but this would change the focus of the meeting away from what we really wanted. But what I said to them is, well, why don't you guys have a symposium, and we'll build a sort of a bridge between them. And so now Niels will tell us about the plan that emerged from that. Take it away, Niels.
Yeah, well, BioViz, we're not bad people. We're just from the dark side, as you can tell. So yeah, I think Sean already pointed out a couple of things of, why is there another meeting now? Yeah, I want to say a few more words about that. And before I tell you what's happening at the meeting, Yeah, I think it's important that everybody understands. And we have the biology style meeting here at VisB. We're going to have BioVis as a more computer science / bioinformatics style meeting. Yeah, so we've already talked about this. And yeah, this meeting is designed to complement VisB, which means that you all should also go to BioVis. That's very important. It's going to be part of IEEE VisWeek 2011. IEEE VisWeek is, well, the major visualization event in the world. 3 different conferences that are part of that. They're called InfoVis, Viz, and VAST. And you should just go to the website and look them up. So it's a whole week only about visualization across all domains. It's a very exciting meeting. I've been there a couple of times now, and it's very, very stimulating. It's coming close to VisB, actually, in terms of how stimulating it is. It's taking place this fall, October 23rd, 24th in Providence, Rhode Island. So everyone who's located around here should be able to go there as well. And yeah, now I want to point out a few things that we're going to do differently. And I'm sure that there are people in the room who would have loved to submit a paper to VisB and to present their work. And this is one of the things that we want to do at BioVis. So we're going to have a papers track where you can submit a full paper. It's going to be peer-reviewed, and there are going to be conference proceedings. And beyond that, we're actually working very hard on getting at least the best papers out of the BioVis meeting also published in an open access bioinformatics journal to make sure that things that are presented at the visualization conference are also getting attention in the bioinformatics and biology fields. We're going to have abstracts as well. So you can send in an abstract for a poster or for a demo if you just want to show your software. You can also send in an abstract if you want to present some software that maybe has already been published, or a method or whatever, basically a highlight that you want to present to the visualization or to the people who are more into visualization than they're in biology or bioinformatics. So typically, of course, posters, demos, and are posters or demos, but we're going to try to pick a couple of the abstracts as well for maybe shorter talks, so you have an opportunity to talk to the whole audience. The paper deadline is April 30th, so you have still some time to do this. There's also an abstract deadline that got lost somehow, which is July 8th. And now, I think someone asked for a challenge contest. We're, well, actually not. Will, who's sitting up there, who might want to raise his hand, has been working very hard on preparing a challenge for BioVis. So we're going to release a data set in April and a couple of questions. And then you're all invited to participate in this and submit your solutions, I think, well, later in the summer. We're going to tell you in time. And that's going to be very interesting, I think. We're going to have an invited session. This is one of the links that we want to establish between VisB and BioVis. So Sean and Matt Hibbs are in charge of this invited session. So we're going to bring some of the people who spoke here also over to BioVis so that they can address the visualization community and tell them more about the challenges. And that is most likely, I think, also going to involve some sort of a panel discussion. But it's not been finalized yet. Finally, we're of course going to have a keynote. We've invited someone who's going to be a very exciting speaker. We just need that person to confirm. And then we'll announce this on our website. And finally, we're also planning to organize tutorials at VisWeek for everyone who's interested in biological data visualization. We want to bring in people who talk a little bit about the challenges in biology, what are the big questions, but also talk about specific domains within biology, what tools are available, how they're used, and what are the specific questions. I think that's all I want to say about this. I really hope that a few of you are going to show up there. And it would be great if you start following us on Twitter, visit our website, we'll keep it updated. And I think then, yeah, it's probably time to leave for me.
And so, if that wasn't enough to convince the computer scientists amongst us that there's a place for their visualization papers, not VisB, in fact, we also managed to convince the ISMB to open up a data visualization track for papers. So ISMB, the largest meeting in bioinformatics, now has a paper visualization track. And so, unfortunately, they decided to do that just a few weeks before the deadline for this year. So next year, most welcome to submit data visualization papers to that meeting. So, in the tradition of informality that we started last year, a bunch of us are going over to Legal Seafood, which is just down the road there, for a drink and probably dinner and who knows what else. Welcome to join us. No reservation, we have to find our own place. It's just completely potluck. And I speak for myself and all the other organizers. I want to say thank God this is over. Thank you very much for everyone attending.